When you think of the fictional Italian sports cars in the game BeamNG.drive, the first thing that comes to mind is most likely going to be the amazingly good Civetta Scintilla, or possibly the slightly more retro Civetta Bolide. You would be forgiven for overlooking what I think of as one of the true gems of the game, and I'm talking about the Autobella Piccolina. Translated to English, that means nice car, little one. Nice little car indeed. Hello everybody, welcome to Alder Dragway just outside of the city in BeamNG's West Coast U.S.A. For several months I've fine-tuned as many of the game's cars as I've been able to the quickest and fastest quarter-mile performance possible from each, without the use of any game mods, and a few simple rules. For those that are curious, or for the career-minded players out there looking for the best bang for their bucks, I'll be working my way through most every make in the game, one at a time, from the base models up to the default drag versions, and I'll be sharing my setups for the ultimate drag versions of each. As you've no doubt guessed, this episode is all about the Autobella Piccolina, and this is its base model, the 110A. Clearly inspired by the Fiat 500, the Piccolina, like the 500 itself, takes some inspiration from the popular Volkswagen Beetle as well, which of course explains the inclusion of the off-road buggy version of this car. Like the Beetles and the Fiat 500 of the time, the Piccolinas are all rear-engine, rear-wheel driven cars. Under the hood of this base model here sits a simple 1.1 liter single carbureted F4 engine that's capable of a whopping 34 brake horsepower. Gears are shifted through a 4-speed manual transmission. The whole car weighs in at just 1,642 pounds and claims a 0 to 60 of just 21 seconds with a top speed of 72 miles per hour. If the 110A is not quite your thing, there's another option. This is the 110B. Color aside, the 110B is just about identical to the 110A in most respects. It's fitted with a front sway bar for better handling, and it's missing the white wall tires, but under the hood sits the same 1.1 liter single carb F4 that makes the same 34 brake horsepower attached to the same 4-speed manual transmission, all weighing in at the same 1,642 pounds. Supposedly, it's a little quicker to 60 miles per hour at 20.3 seconds, but claims the same top speed of 72 miles per hour. For what's probably going to be the slowest passes ever on this channel, let's see how quickly the base model Piccolinas are able to cover the quarter mile here at Alder Dragway. While we wait for the outcome of this, if you're enjoying this, hit that thumbs up. If this is the sort of thing you're into, subscribe to the channel for more. If you try any of this for yourself, let me know in the comments how it goes. Back to the action. Across the finish line, the 110A is the quicker of the two here today, running at 21.789 at 59.08 miles per hour. The 110B running at 21.953 at a slightly faster 59.61 miles per hour. So much for those 0 to 60 performance claims. To not risk putting you all to sleep, we'll skip the replay of that and move up to the slightly improved 130s, starting with the 130A. Very similar in appearance to the 110s, the 130A is a few years newer and has obviously taken on some inspiration from the world of rallying, ditching the hubcaps in favor of some sportier looking rims. Where things start to differ more, however, is under the hood. The 130s, as you may have guessed, are fitted with a slightly larger 1.3 liter F4 engines. The 130A still uses just a single carburetor and is still fitted to a manual 4-speed transmission, but it's now a whole 10 brake horsepower more powerful than the 110s, making 44 brake horsepower while coming in at the same 1,642 pounds. With that, it now claims a 0 to 60 time of 14.4 seconds with a top speed of 81 miles per hour. Inside the car, you now get a much sportier wheel and, rather importantly, a tachometer, making it much easier to know when to shift than just going by ear. If the 130A was the first step in the Piccolina's evolution to sporty, the 130B is another step forward in that. Looking very similar to the 130A in most respects, there are a couple differences. While both versions sport the same rally-inspired rims all around, the 130B now has vented rear fenders. Under the hood lies the other difference. While also fitted with a 1.3 litre F4, the 130B sports dual carburetors and a sport exhaust. Still attached to the same 4-speed manual transmission, the 130B makes 61 brake horsepower and claims an improved 0 to 60 time of 11.3 seconds with a top speed of 94 miles per hour. Let's see how the 130s stack up where it counts. No surprise, the 130B across the finish line quicker, running a 7.625 at 72.9 miles per hour. The single carb stock exhaust 130A running a 19.739 at 65.9 miles per hour. Again, I'll spare you all a replay of that, and we'll move on to the sporty 150 Corsa. If you're looking for a track day Piccolina that you could drive home in afterwards, this would be a good candidate. Fitted with rather racing looking rims all around, the 150 Corsa goes for the lighter is better approach, ditching the bumpers as well as most of the interior. Inside the trunk sits a fuel cell in place of the stock tank. Under the hood sits a 1.5 litre Stage 1 performance block, dual carb F4 engine attached to a 5-speed manual transmission that makes 90 brake horsepower, with the whole car coming in at the lightest yet 1,620 pounds. The 150 Corsa claims to do 0 to 60 miles per hour in 7 seconds flat, with a top speed of 109 miles per hour. What it will do in the quarter mile, we'll have to see. The 150 Corsa puts up a 15.285 at almost 86 miles per hour. Okay, time to step the performance up some. This one is simply called the Street Machine. The first thing you may notice here is the vented trunk. That's because inside the trunk, along with the racing fuel cell, sits a performance radiator to provide the cooling for what's out back. And what's out back is a 2-liter Stage 1 turbocharged F4 on nitrous that makes 385 brake horsepower attached to a 6-speed manual transmission, with the whole car weighing in at just 1,863 pounds. The Street Machine claims a 0 to 60 miles per hour of just 4.6 seconds with a top speed of 177 miles per hour. Inside you'll find a full roll cage, a relocated battery, a 10-pound bottle of laughing gas, and a racy new shifter. This is looking to be a pretty decent ride. The Street Machine lays down a 10.357 at 130 miles per hour. Not too bad. result of what happens when somebody decides to put drag tires on a dune buggy and showing off the beetle within, we move on to the default drag version of the Piccolina. As you can see, beyond the pretty colors, they've gone to stretch things out some. While sort of odd looking, if we had some better suspension options for this chassis, these could make for one of the more badass looking cars in the game. What's under the hood, however, is nothing to be disappointed about. This is the pinnacle of Autobella performance, the Stage 3 twin turbocharged 2.5 litre F4 engine on nitrous, making 925 brake horsepower straight off the menu. It's attached to a racing 6-speed sequential transmission, and the whole thing weighs in at 2,315 pounds. It claims a 0 to 60 time at 2.2 seconds with a top speed of 226 miles per hour. The power is put to the track through some beefy grip ball drag slicks and is kept from launching into orbit with the assistance of unadjustable wheelie bars. This car, as it is a handful and very fun to drive. Default drag Piccolina runs at 8.358 at 175 miles per hour. For those of you building at home, grab a pen and a paper, because we're going to take that buggy-inspired drag default car and see how much potential is really there. Or at least get much closer to it. This is my version of that car, and as you can spot straight away, there are a few clear differences. The most notable change being the rims. While cool looking, the default drag rims are not the lightest of the choices, and when you're looking for fractions of seconds, pounds count. The second big difference is inside the car. Because pounds count, and no people living or virtual are actually going to be in this car, I've removed the roll cage. In the back sits the same Stage 3 twin turbocharged 2.5 litre F4 with the same racing 6-speed sequential transmission, with my tune-up in the car now making 1,218 brake horsepower, with it all weighing in at 2,205 pounds, more than 100 pounds lighter than default. The other differences are a little tougher to spot, but include the use of maximum turbo boost and nitrous, reworked transmission settings, and to prevent the car from wheeling so hard, I've softened the rear suspension to allow the wheelie bars to sit lower and better do their thing. The result, if I do say so myself, is a pretty decent and very fun race car to take down the track. The reworked, retuned stretch Piccolina runs at 7.610 at 192.8 miles per hour. Final car of the episode is what I feel is the quickest and fastest of all the Piccolina combinations in the quarter mile without the use of game mods. This version is fitted with the same Stage 3 twin turbocharged 2.5 litre F4 as the previous two cars, with the same racing 6-speed sequential transmission, but while the stretch versions of the Piccolina are cool, this version weighs in at just 1,846 pounds. 359 pounds lighter than the buggy, and makes the same 1218 brake horsepower. This car might look familiar to viewers of this channel since I have had it out before, including in the last episode where it made the list of my top 15 unmodded drag cars in BeamNG at number 11 after a 7.599 197 mile per hour pass. Since that episode, I've made a few tune-up changes and found a little more performance. The changes include mostly tweaks to the transmission settings and, like the buggy, a softer rear suspension to reduce the height of the wheelie bars and better control the size of the wheelies. With all that done, it's a sure thing that the Piccolina is going to move up the list of the top 15. The question is, how much? The ultimate unmodded Autobella Piccolina runs a 7.328 to jump up to number 8 and becomes only the second unmodded car on this channel to put a 200 mile per hour run on the board at 200.04. It didn't eclipse it by much, but it's much more impressive to look at than a 199.99. Okay, that wraps things up. I hope you enjoyed our look at the Autobella Piccolina today. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, keep it in your own damn lane.